Welcome back to What Now? I'm your host, Shannon Hughes, and I'm here with Shawnté Rothschild from the Maricopa Unified School District.
Thank you for having me.
She is on the school board, so we're excited to dive into the conversation. Thank you for being here today. Appreciate it. So let's just open up with what made you step into the role?
So, as a neurodiverse person, as a child of someone who is on the spectrum, and as a woman of color, I've seen the various roles that education can play in our future. I've seen the difference of two individuals going through the exact same thing, and one because of lack of education, and not necessarily the formalized education, but lack of knowledge, of understanding of rights, change the trajectory. And so for me, I always knew at a young age, education was empowering.
Right.
And so looking at the plight of education in our world today, being number 48, even though we are a great state, being number 48, and that varies from time to time, but that's scary to me.
Right.
I have a granddaughter. I work in corporate America, and so the lack of education or what happens to our youth in those formidable years impacts us, not only as community members, but as individuals who run businesses, as people who are seeking medical services, as people who are relying on legislators to make decisions for our future. And so, in short, education means everything.
Right.
And again, it's not the formalization of it, because education happens, as you know, from the first time our children hear our voice to how we interact with them. And so it comes at various levels. But in short, education is the foundation for our futures.
I'm so glad to be talking to you too. So I'm a homeschool mom.
Okay.
I have a 2-year-old and a 7-year-old. My 7-year-old did 1 year in public school, and it was a nightmare. So I pulled him out, and I was like, look, I can do it.
Yeah, I get that.
So what's your opinion with like the public school versus privatized education?
I believe, as with anything, our experiences are very personal. With that, I do realize that there's a system in place, and while it's not always perfect, the system is what allows us as community members to function.
Right.
And I say that because I was waiting in line the other day at a restaurant, and there was an elderly woman who was in the line, and someone else came up and they circumvented her. They went and they got in front of her. Now, the courteous thing would have been for them, once they realized that they had kind of gotten in front of someone in line, is to say, excuse me, and then step aside.
Right.
But that entitlement and the fact that there's no quote unquote law or no one to enforce that, they continue to do what they wanted to do. And so I give that example to say, without choices, life can be challenging, but there has to be some accountability in those choices. And for me, that's kind of the difference between public schools and private schools. I believe that parents should have the right to support their children, to decide what is the best route to achieve their education, but I also think that there needs to be some guidelines around it, whether it's public or private. I believe in choices, and so I think that's great that we have those options now, and we'll probably get into it later, but there are some challenges when choices sometimes get in front of what is best for the overall public.
Agree. Yeah. And that was the thing too, which I was shocked to understand. So I'm from Seattle, Washington. When you
have
homeschool,
a good system there, a good school system?
Yeah, well, he was so young, so he never really entered it there. It was his first year of school when we moved here.
Okay.
So it was like, oh, there's so many options. It was almost like overwhelming because there's charter and there's public and you can do ESA and send them to private, or you can do ESA and you can homeschool. It was almost like there's no one way to do it, which I kind of liked, but it was overwhelming for me as a parent. So I was like, I'm just going to go with the easiest, the school that he can walk to.
Yes.
You know, because if that works out, then it's simple, right? And I should be able, I should be able to trust to just send my kid to the school around the corner. But that experience was so horrendous. It was shocking to me. Like, is this why there's so many options? And why is it like this? And so that was...
What about the experience was hard?
So my son being a black male, it was... The struggle wasn't really the teachers per se or the system. It was the other kids that he was communing with and the lack of structure in the personal development. And nobody's really ingrained in like coaching the kids how to, you know what I mean, like form proper friendships, or like it didn't seem like they were heavily monitored.
Yes.
And it seemed like a lot of the teachers were more overwhelmed and less passionate about their jobs. Like more like, okay, we just need it. And it's just like, I hear you guys, but I also want my kid prioritized a little bit. So as a parent, that was a struggle. And then 2, he needed more one-on-one stuff, and they didn't have the resources to give that. So we did look at private schools. And then, you know, the racial issues come to play too. So that was concerning. So if I don't get the right feeling as a parent after interviewing 3 schools, I'm like, well, you just keep you home.
You are his advocate. You are his
Then we'll just keep you home. And I'm going to learn how to be your teacher, right? But I do like the ESA program. I like that it's an option for us. I would say, I'm wondering when those statistics are coming out and they're ranking our schools, are they doing it just based off public, or is it based off the private, the charter, the homeschool? Is it
So there's lots of data there. So different schools have different requirements. And so I spend a lot of time in the public school sector, so that's kind of where my area of expertise is. But it depends on what poll. So I know with public schools, there's a lot more oversight, a lot more reporting of data. And so with some of the private schools and the charter schools, those requirements are a little different. Not to say that they don't, but the requirements are different. And so the 48, typically when that ranking comes in, it is based on public schools and schools who are required to provide that.
And that's kind of unfortunate, because there's some kids thriving in the, you know, the private, the charter, the homeschool. So I was like, to just base it off such a small part, I think that kind of sucks too. I would say homeschooling, there's not any oversight. I was shocked to find out there's no reporting, there's no standardized testing. I mean, I'm figuring all that out on my own, but that was interesting.
And so some of these questions are great. So I'm never one to just kind of sit with something. So you're giving me a couple takeaways. So we'll definitely look into that to see which schools are a part of that reporting. So you will find with me, I have no problem in being wrong. For me, it's making sure that the data is correct. And that's the importance of data, right? Data can say anything that we want it to say, which also goes into the vouchers and the misconception about things. So thank you for sharing your son's experience. It's definitely not unique.
So you are doing the SOS to Save Our Schools. Can you tell me a little bit about what that?
Well, Save Our Schools, and I will give the whole disclaimer. These are my views, my choices, my feedback. So I'm an organizer in Pinal County for Save Our Schools, Arizona. The focus is truly to make sure that public schools are fully funded. And with that, we kind of talked about education and advocacy and giving people the information that they need to have their voices. Save Our Schools does that. It educates individuals, not only our local community here, but other states, other countries, on how ESAs can be better. Giving people the background on how they initially came about, dispelling misnomers about what Save Our Schools is trying to do and vice versa. And so with that, Save Our Schools has been, I'm going to use the word blessing, because it has given me the information to be more impactful, not only as my work with the school board, but also help me provide information to others. So, for example, you asked me about polling and that information. With Save Our Schools, I'm going to go home and look up that information. It's going to be readily available, and I know that it's been vetted. Versus in the past, I would have had to go and do my own research and not quite know if it was accurate. So I will definitely Save Our Schools. Save Our Schools is a well-respected organization in the community. We were out after doing some petition signings and things, and we had on our Save Our Schools shirts. And people were like, thank you, I'm a teacher, or yes, I homeschool my children, but you know, your site has been a resource. And so it has really helped me understand the challenges, especially the legislative piece around vouchers, and just, you know, how they function, how they work, and how we can make them better. I think is the most important part.
I love that so much. So we're going to take a quick little break, and then we will come right back and continue our conversation.
We all make choices about alcohol. Kids make choices whether to drink or not.
Bye, Dad.
Bye-bye.
Remember, I'm going to Alex's party tonight and sleeping over.
Have fun. Hey, remind me about that party again?
And adults make choices whether to talk about it. That's true of parents and every other trusted adult in a kid's life. Kids want to know our expectations, and they want honest answers in everyday conversations. So talk with your kids and help lead them on a positive path, because when you talk, they hear you.
Human trafficking is happening right here in Arizona, often right in front of us. Every 2 minutes, a child is trafficked in the U.S. Traffickers are clever. They use social media, fake jobs, and ride shares to lure victims. Stay alert. Don't pick up business cards or money from the ground. Check your car door handles for tissues or markings. These could be signals. Be cautious of hidden trackers like AirTags. If you ever feel unsafe in a store, ask an employee to walk you out. Trust your instincts. If something feels off, leave immediately and call 911. If you suspect trafficking, reach out to the National Human Trafficking Hotline at 1-888-373-7888 or visit polarisproject.org. Your awareness can save lives.
Welcome back to What Now? We're going to continue our conversation. So, Shawnté, what do you think people misunderstand the most when it comes to public school funding?
Let's see. I would say funding follows students, but the costs don't disappear, meaning that the funding is based on the number of students attending the schools. However, if a student leaves, that funding that the school has accounted for follows that student. But those day-to-day costs still remain. Retaining teachers, keeping the lights on, the food and all of those things. And so I remember when my children's teachers would ask for the markers and the wipes and different things, and naively I would say, well, I'm sending you to school. There are dollars for that, right? Why, as parents, do we have to pay for that? Now knowing that, again, I was naive in that because many of those dollars aren't flexible, and that's another misunderstanding as well. Well, those dollars are in the school. Why don't they just move the money around? Yeah. And with that, many of those dollars are already earmarked. They can only be used for specific things. And so as complex as businesses are, as complex as the world is, so is a complexity that schools, and I can only speak to public schools, but I would assume all schools face. It's never as black and white as people think. And then I would say the last is many people think that if the school needs it, then the government is going to give it, that there must be public dollars for that. And again, that is not always the case. There are funding shortages. Schools have challenges just like any other organization that needs to exist. So I would say those are some of the biggest misnomers that I've encountered.
Take another little break, and then we will come right back.
And I'd like to invite 3 of my 4 children up with me to celebrate in this place. That would be you. In spirit.
Please repeat after me. State of Arizona, County of Pinal, I, Shawnté Rothschild, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution and the law of the State of Arizona.
State of Arizona, County of Pinal, I, Shawnté Rothschild, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution and laws of the State of Arizona.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and defend them against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of the office of the governing board member for the Maricopa Unified School District according to the best of my abilities. So help me God.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and defend them against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of the office of governing board member for Maricopa Unified School District according to the best of my abilities. So help me God.
So how do you guys handle parent pushback, like when they disagree with some of your guys' policies or anything?
So again, I am going to speak to my personal thoughts only because I don't want to speak on behalf of the school board, but I can share what I've seen. And I will say every conversation should be centered around what's best for our children, for their ability to learn, for the environment. If we stay centered on our students, I think we'll always arrive at the best decision. With that, one, I'm going to say, going back to just education, I think when people understand the reason for policies, for procedures, for why decisions were made, I think that there is more acceptance, more tolerance, and also more willingness to help make those changes when needed. Mm-hmm. And so I, as a parent, as a community member, appreciate the fact that if I don't agree with something that is going on at our schools, and I will say both for parents who have children in our school system and for those that don't. At our school board meetings, we have a call to the public where the public, again, whether you're a parent or not a parent, you can speak up about policies and procedures that you have concerns with. We as school board members don't get to address those concerns. We defer that to the superintendent. And then based upon that, then the superintendent addresses those concerns. So one, there's always a voice or platform to provide feedback, which I think is important. I think it's also important to call out that a disagreement or a question is not a bad thing. There's always opportunity to improve. And so with that, what I've seen happen is that when people have questions or concerns, they're taken to the superintendent, and then from there, they're addressed. And so sometimes that looks as simple as working with the principal of that particular school on their policies and procedures, or looking at the overall way that things are done in the school district, and then following up with those individuals. But I would also say what I've seen done is people have then been asked to sit on committees. So for example, if I had maybe a question about curriculum or I thought that it could be done better, right, there are various committees that community members are asked to sit on so that they can help make some of those decisions and then educate other community members, because at the end of the day, it's about us as a community and making those choices for the students.
Right. So it seems like too, beyond like meetings and stuff like that, you guys are providing spaces for transparency.
Yes. Oh, most definitely.
But a lot of people don't really show up.
Correct.
So they have the opportunity to just show up.
Yes.
Right? Okay. So that's a big thing too. Like we were talking about that earlier. There is a responsibility to us as parents to show up, you know, and if we're not showing up for those meetings or those opportunities or joining a committee, we don't want to do those things. We want to just jump on you guys. But I think it's another thing to understand is as parents, we're focused on our individual student, our child, but you guys have to focus on everybody's children, what's best for everybody, what works for the majority. And so I think that's a lot of like, everybody's worried about me, me, but it's an us thing. So it's like if we're all in it together and we can show empathy and transparency and accountability for us as a whole, I think that would solve a lot of the disagreements too.
And to that point, I as a parent and a community member always encourage people to speak up. As again, I'm almost 50. My mom still advocates for me. My dad still advocates for me. And so with that, I think it's very important, going back to your other question about what should parents be worried about. If we have that relationship with our children, we're able to help them also go through that process. So if a parent has a question about a policy and procedure, right, that child is then watching that. And they're watching how they handle that, and they're watching them do their research, and they're watching them show up at those meetings, and they're watching them say those words, and here's why I'm concerned, here's what I'm willing to do, and what steps can be done. So it's that mimicking, right, of behaviors. It's that we are still showing our children what they can do and what they can accomplish through our actions.
Right. It's like that old saying, like the squeaky wheel gets the grease. That's what my dad always told me. Like when I would want a job, he like, don't just fill out the online application. He used to tell me to call and act like I had an interview even though I didn't have one. And he's like, when you want something, you go for it. But you have to advocate for yourself. You know, there's nobody can advocate for everybody individually and the whole. So you have to be able to do that for yourself. And I think as parents, we have a big problem of like, you got to show up. You can't just expect
And it's hard being a parent too. I mean, it's
is
hard being an individual just with responsibilities for yourself. So I always commend parents. It's just hard. It's a beautiful role. It's a blessing to have, but taking care of ourselves is a challenge. I think we as parents work harder for our children than we do ourselves, and sometimes what seems more of a frustration is just the hope of, I want my children to have their best chance.
Right.
And so I applaud any parent that is doing that. But again, it's a joint effort. So no system is perfect. Sometimes a parent will bring something up and no change comes about, and that happens. But there are other times where maybe that exact change didn't come about, but changes to the policy are made that will benefit others. So we just keep
and just even you coming to speak to me today, like, thank you so much. Because I think sometimes, you know, we think school board and it's like this mystery faces of all these people that control the decisions for whatever. And it's like, sometimes get to know the people because they're there, you know, like you said, doing your research. And who's your superintendent? Who's the principal? Making those meetings, showing up at the committee. I think if you put a face, it humanizes also. And it's not just writing emails because we're angry. You know, we have to understand who we're working with too. So do you think Arizona is doing enough for public schools, or do you feel like we're falling behind a little bit?
I will say I've lived here my entire life, and as I mentioned, I have teachers that I absolutely love and still remember. One of them is actually running for office right now for superintendent, and the work is great, but I also believe when it comes to the way that we live our lives, you can never do too much. There's always more that we can do. Times have changed, requirements have changed, our world is growing, and you have to keep up with that. So in short, yes, I think the work is being done. Teachers are doing the work, the community is doing the work, but more can be done. Again, I think mental health is a huge area of concern because no matter how smart a child is, no matter how dedicated they are, if they are struggling mentally, it's hard to move past that. And so while there are many of things I think that we can improve on, I think if we keep the children at the center of our conversations, I think we'll get there. It's just a challenge when you're talking about human lives, and with that it requires a human touch. So the data, the tests, all of those things are important, but we have to focus on the individual children themselves. And so those social skills that we talked about, the emotional intelligence, teaching children how to be good communicators, teaching them that we share this earth with others, teaching them that it's not just about them, but about others. And so what we can do, I think, for our schools is, one, to make sure that they are fully funded. The children's needs are important. The educators' needs are important. If we make sure that the children have what they need, and those supplying those skills, which are our teachers, and the administration has what they need, then we can't go wrong. We have to know that it's not going to be perfect, but if we're all contributing, if we're all actively engaged, then we're going to get through it in a way to where everyone is satisfied and productive. I hate to keep harping on money, but without the funding, the schools can't exist. In addition, I think it's important for parents and community members to stay informed. Legislation, especially local, is always at the heart and the foundation of everything. So understanding changes to vouchers, what that looks like, understanding changes federally to our funding, what that looks like, understanding testing matrix, understanding all of those requirements is important. And so I think some things that we as a state can do better at is making sure that those resources are not only available, but available at a level where everyone can understand them. Available in formats that are easy to digest. So whether it's in writing or whether it's in social media form, but in a way to where everyone can get the information in a format to where it's easy to understand, and also having access to ask those questions, whether it's to their legislators, their school board members. I think that's important. Being able to ask those questions and getting real life responses in a timely manner.
I love it. So how can we as a community get involved with SOS, and how can we get in contact?
Oh, I love that question. So, SaveOurSchoolsArizona.org is the website for Save Our Schools. With that, too, I think it's also important to know who our legislators are, because, again, everything is local. And when people say that they don't do politics, then you're not doing life. Because everything from the cost of milk to our roads to why isn't there a street light on has to do with policy, has to do with legislation. And so I would encourage everyone to find out these people that we've elected, even if you didn't vote, the people that are our voices. You need to find out who those people are and let them know what you want so that they can make decisions based upon that. And last but not least, I would encourage everyone to get involved with your local schools. Whether you have children in the school system or not, if you're a business owner, everything starts with education. Making sure that our children, which we all know is our future, it's not just a song, have the resources that are needed not only to love themselves, to interact with others, but to make those wise decisions, to be able to read a sign, to be able to read a document that they're signing, to be able not only to read it, but to be able to interpret it and to have those critical thinking skills, because that's life. How we're educated, the foundation, our ability to learn and take in information makes us better people. And I think that's all that we want at the end of the day, is to be surrounded by people in our community that care about one another, that care about their future, and are willing to do the work to make our environment a place that people want to live and be happy and thrive.
I love it. So you said saveourschools.org.
Yes.
Is there an email or phone number? We'll put it on the screen.
You can definitely reach out to me at educating4success@gmail.com. And if you have any questions regarding the school board, if you go to MUSD 20, you will find my contact information there.
Thank you so much for coming on our show, Shawnté. So we have loved our conversation with you, but it's time to wrap up. So we will see you guys next time on What Now?
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.